Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 23, Survey Execution and Data Analysis. And we are continuing our topic, Problems and Issues in Executing Survey Research. Sometimes even if all these steps for increasing the return rate of the self-administered questionnaires are employed, it is unlikely that more than 70% of the questionnaires will be returned. The question then remains, how does the 30% who do not respond affect the research outcomes? Can we say that the representativeness of the sample is not jeopardized? The answer is both yes and no. For instance, sometimes the poor return rate might affect the research findings as a result of the lack of representativeness. At other times, it may not at all affect the findings of the survey. One way of dealing with this question is to compare the information about those who do not respond with the information derived from some other source about the sample. For example, assume that a self-administered questionnaire is mailed to a simple random sample of the students of a college and that 60% of the sample return their questionnaires. Information from the survey about the respondents' age, sex and subject of study can be compared to the information derived from the materials available on the total student body. If there are no startling differences between the survey data and the data from other sources, it could be concluded that the 40% of the sample which did not return their questionnaire is similar to the 60% of those who did return them. In this case, the issue of representativeness is favorably resolved. However, it is important to mention that this is not a perfect solution and there can be other ways of resolving it. Now the next point is face-to-face interviews. Even though the response rate is considerably higher for interviews, there are similar problems involved in face-to-face interviews. Some strategies for improving the response rate in interviews are the following. The refusal of cooperation by potential respondents can be lessened by first training the interviewers in ways to establish rapport with the respondents. The temptation of the interviewers to avoid certain respondents should be diminished by emphasizing the validation procedure and requiring the interviewers to account for each non-completion. For example, sometimes a researcher doing door-to-door survey may avoid a house that displays a board "Beware of the dog." Respondents are often not home when the researcher attempts to contact them. It is therefore important to make visits at different times of the day and on different days of the week. If these strategies are used effectively and the response rate is average or better, there is still the question of how representative the respondents are of the total group one has tried to study. The suggestion given in the case of self-administered questionnaire for comparing the survey information on the respondents with other information about the total group is applied in the case of face-to-face interviews as well. Further, a major issue crucial for the success of the implementation of the interview process is the selection and training of the interviewing staff. The following aspects should be kept in mind while training the interviewers. Train interviewers in how to establish rapport with the respondents in order to gain their cooperation. However, rapport does not mean to encourage the pleasing answers. The interviewers must be told to remember that the interview situation is one of the social interaction. Differences in characteristics such as caste, race, sex, social class, religion of both the respondent and the interviewers have an impact on the answer elicited. The interviewers should become non-judgmental towards the respondents. This quality should make the respondents feel comfortable in expressing their true feelings. It makes good sense to hire and train interviewers who are not radically different from the people whom they will be interviewing. A manual may be prepared for the interviewers which deals with the general interviewing techniques and the unique requirements of the particular study in questions. After the actual interviewing process begins, interviewers should be asked to return their first few completed interviews to the supervisory personnel for the critical evaluation. At this point, some validation interviews should be conducted by telephone or in person to ensure that the interviewers are not irritating any respondents and that they are really conducting the interviews according to the instructions. Such an assessment is helpful for the purpose of evaluating the questionnaire under actual field conditions. Independent validation of the interviews should be continued throughout the time period of the interviews. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning podcast.